Welcome to the show Gold Squadron Gays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays talk about and review their favorite Star Wars content while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
I'm your other host, Charles Rogers, and we're out of TV shows.
We have officially covered every
live
TV
action
show that is live
show.
action that is relevant to the canon of Star Wars.
We have currently covered every live action show that is available on Disney Plus, as well as every animation show that came out during the time that we started recording the podcast. We are, after 6 months, officially caught up.
Okay. I mean, well, the only thing we haven't caught up on, I guess, would be Visions, but I don't really count that as much as...
We haven't done season 2. Visions kind of occupies this weird space.
It's an in-between
in my mind,
space. Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, we're going to cover it, but we're not going to cover it like immediately. Like there isn't a sense of urgency. Right. Visions, I feel, is timeless. Visions really we can cover at any point. We can come back to that in 2 years and cover season 2.
I agree.
We can do season 2 next week. We can do it whenever we want to, because it's not going to tell us anything about the future of the Star Wars brand. Yes. It's not going to give us any insights into anything that's already happened.
Sure.
It's all non-canon anyway. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't fucking matter. We can do it at any point, and that's the beauty of Visions. So if we have, 10 weeks free in the future when they're slowing down the live action shows, then...
Which seems to be the case.
To be the case, which I think they should be doing.
Yeah,
I agree with this decision.
Yes.
Yeah. Not just because... Shout out to Tony Gilroy. So Andor is going to come out in a couple of weeks, and Andor... Tony Gilroy went on record and said, Andor being 3 episodes a week for 4 weeks is a Disney decision, not a creative decision. And he specifically said, I mean, maybe it's better for us. Maybe it's better for the audience. I don't know about podcasters. What are they going to do? That's like a movie a week. And I'm like, thank you, Tony.
But he's
thinking about
us. Right.
He's right. Every podcaster, and not just podcaster, every person who does content with regards to shows that are ongoing, when that was announced, we're all like, Jesus fucking Christ.
Right, because there's so much to cover in such a short amount of time.
And you can't blow through Andor.
No.
You gotta...
It's too meaty. You can't.
It's too meaty. Yeah. That would be like trying to review an entire season of Hannibal in one sitting. You can't do that. That's not a thing you can do. And give it the justice it deserves for the craftsmanship involved. I really like Hannibal, by the way.
I see, because hasn't been a relevant show in how many years?
I don't fucking care. It's relevant to me, Bradley. We're gonna talk about this is our big Skeleton Crew recap episode, and by big I mean short. Because I slept through my alarm today.
Well, but also I'm not even kidding you. I was thinking about this last night. I was like, I don't know. And in our past recap episodes, we're able to kind of break down, a little bit and be like, okay, this is what we liked, what we didn't like, blah, blah, blah. This is different. What else are we going to say other than it was good? We liked it a lot. Please make more of it. We love it. You know what I mean? It's really hard to kind of be like, that's why our likes and dislikes in the beginning of every episode this season was always, what did you like and what do you think you could improve on? Not necessarily what you didn't like, because we didn't like anything. It was just like, change this,
I'm going to disagree with you eventually on one of those points, but I know that there's a specific section at the end. That's a question you always ask in our recaps, and I'm saving it for that.
That's the only time we can ever disagree, though.
We disagree a fair amount, Bradley. That's the allure of the podcast, is listening to two gay men bitchily argue at each other for somewhere between 30 minutes and 2 hours about Star Wars. That's the point. That's why the audience is here. They're not here for the Star Wars. They're here to watch us tear vicious chunks out of each other.
Yeah, I fear that with this particular show, though, they unfortunately cooked and they gave us something that we both agree on and that we like, and it's really weird. There's no controversy here.
Even our points of improvement, we pretty much agreed on the whole time. Before we get too much into it, and I feel us slipping down into the meat, I have a thing Charles fucked up, and I have a piece of feedback that I want to read. I have 2 separate sections
before
we get into this. So, first up on the thing Charles fucked up. On the last episode, I made several comments about the Inquisitors killing Ethkoth's kid. And I was informed after the fact, I do not know why I misremembered the comic this way, but I just misremembered the comic this way. The Inquisitors do not actually kill Ethkoth's kid, which is, of course, a glaring oversight on my part. They take the kid away for their weird Inquisitor stuff. They
Oh,
kill
the
Ethkoth.
Inquisitor comics. When you said Ethkoth, I was like, I don't know who that is.
This is the
I
Vader
was,
comic. The
oh, the
Vader
Vader comic.
comics by
Yeah.
Charles
You know
Soule,
what's funny? I was
which we
editing
covered.
and I heard you say that in the edit, and I didn't think to at the time to say anything. I don't know why I didn't say anything, but I specifically was in the edit going, they don't kill the baby. They just take it away and they give it to Palpatine's weird scientist people or
Yeah,
something. Like,
mea culpa. That's on me. I misremembered this comic. Now, I do not think that this affects my original point during that section, which
then
was
it doesn't
I
matter.
believe that Captain Silvo is lying about some elements of his backstory. I do
Possibly.
not think that the fact that it is conceivable that he was taken away by the Inquisitors and escaped makes that, I would say it's possible that he was taken away by the Inquisitors and escaped. I personally do not think it's plausible that he managed to escape because the only people that I think we've really seen escape the Inquisitorius are fully grown adult Jedi.
Yes.
In Seer Junta manages to get away. And Zerleonis' sister is the only other one that comes to mind for me. And she had help from the Ghost crew to get away.
Right.
So I still think my overall point of Silvo's probably lying, and I am watching Black Sails right now, so I am definitely going to mix up Silvo and Silver at some point because Silver also tells things about his backstory in Black Sails, and I'm like, that didn't fucking happen.
Right.
I think my overall point that Silvo is probably lying remains intact. However, I just want to clear up, no, the Inquisitors do not kill a baby in the Vader comics. I messed that up. That's on
Yeah.
me. I have a piece of feedback from our friend Stef over at Darkside Divas and Holodeck Divas. Hi, Stef. I am actually starting to enjoy The Next Generation. We have gotten far enough in season 1 now that I am starting to enjoy it. So you should listen to Holodeck Divas if you are a Star Trek fan. It is the podcast I am watching Star Trek alongside. But she tagged me in a message in the Darkside Divas Discord server, and I am going to read it aloud. She says, quote, listening to your latest episode on Skeleton Crew, and I had to laugh when you said, Jod, why are you beefing with this teenage girl so hard? I actually said out loud in my kitchen, Charles, have you met teenage girls? A teenage girl can be your best friend or your worst nightmare. I mean, I know what route I chose back in the day.
Right.
Anyway, Jod, with his multiple dastardly betrayals, more than earned worst nightmare treatment from Fern, and he had the lack of emotional maturity to actively hate her back. End quote.
No
I
notes.
think that is a wonderful perspective that I did not think of because I was never a teenage girl.
10 out
So
of 10.
thank you, Steph, for pointing that out. That yes, John beefing with a teenage girl, not really a surprise.
No, not at all.
Also, please check out Darkside Divas and Holodeck Divas if you have not. Let's talk about our thoughts on Skeleton Crew. Beyond Skeleton Crew good.
I know. I do find it difficult to be like, I grew up watching Treasure Planet. I like the pirate show in set in space. Like, I don't know what else to say other than, yes, Disney, thank you for doing this thing that we didn't even want. I will say that. This is a great way to start off.
Okay.
I specifically remember when they announced this and we were like, don't know what that is. That doesn't sound interesting. Don't really care. And
My
even
reaction
up until
was
the trailer.
My reaction was, oh my fucking God, can we stop with the Mandoverse shows already?
Yeah.
We get it.
Yes.
Grogu was a giant cultural smash hit that has eclipsed the Minions as far as this cultural moment.
Recognizability.
We
Yeah.
fucking get it. We know. Stop with the Mandoverse shows. That was my
Yeah.
first reaction when they announced Skeleton Crew at Celebration Anaheim in 2020.
Right, because they also announced, was it Rangers at the same time too?
No.
Oh no, that
Okay,
was a different
so
one.
Rangers was back in that god awful investor call in January.
Oh, that
of
was way before.
2021.
Okay.
Yeah. The worst thing to happen in January
But still
2021. I can't think of
Mandoverse.
anything in
Yeah,
January 2021 that happened that was worse than that investor call. But yeah, it was that god awful investor call in January 2021.
Okay.
where Rangers was
Right.
announced. Skeleton Crew was 2022 in Anaheim.
Okay.
And that
Which,
was my reaction was
yeah.
God, not more fucking Mandalorian shit.
Yeah, it was really weird because like we had no idea what it was at the time. So it was just rampant speculation of just it could be literally
We
anything.
had a
But
piece of art and we had the pitch. It's about kids who find a ship and
yeah,
go off into space.
right. I
And I'm
think there was
like,
a lot of backlash to that too.
there
Like
was
just,
people
oh,
were
this is gonna
like,
be a kiddie show. No one's gonna
mm.
watch this.
Even
Yeah.
though they said the show's about kids, but it's not a kid show, that
I
everybody
mean,
was like, what the fuck is this? Now, there are people who saw that and were like, I'm excited for it. These people are less cynical than I am about the
they have
Star
more faith
Wars
than I
brand.
do, that's for sure.
I saw this and I went, what the like
I know.
it looks fine, but like, do we need another show? Do we need another Mando show? What the fuck is going on? And then the trailer came out and I kind of sat up and went,
Interesting.
hmm,
Yep. The trailer did change
interesting.
my mind. Yeah, for sure. I think up until that point, though, I was very anti-Skeleton Crew. I was very like, ugh, I just don't care. Like, I just don't care enough about the premise, like to be like, okay. I also think they didn't do a very good job of giving us the premise of the show either. I don't think that is genuinely accurate enough to be like, or I think it's oversimplified, right? Like they said, four kids lost in space. That's an oversimplification of what this show was. Because if you had said four kids who get lost on a ship and then have to deal with pirates XYZ, like that I could understand, like maybe a little bit more excitement about, like, but yeah, I think it was too generic of a, they were just, I mean, I get why they were not telling us anything, but I also, on
Right,
the other
because the
hand,
mystery is the fun of the discovery, right?
I know. Yeah,
That turned out to be like they played the long game and they
they
won.
did.
They really played the long game with the show. They really believed in what they had. And they said, the show is about this base premise. We are trusting this show
I agree. Yeah,
to have the word of mouth to spread to people for people to tune in and watch this show. And they did.
they
They did.
really did.
Word of mouth
Yeah.
spread very quickly about the show. A lot of people tuned into this show and it really like knocked it out of the park. Beginning to end, it knocked it out of the park. I think arbitrary numbers ratings are bullshit. And this is not
Yeah.
just because I am a person who publishes books and I think that the 5-star rating system is utter bullshit. I think you cannot distill a complicated opinion on a subjective piece of media down into a quantifiable number. But if I were
Yeah.
to distill this down into a quantifiable number,
Sure.
9.8 out of 10.
9.8. Okay.
Like the stumbles that this show makes, because it trips over its feet a few times.
Sure.
The stumbles that this show makes are so minor, so as to me, not matter in terms of what the show actually managed to pull off. And what it managed to pull off was being a fun Star Wars adventure and a fun pirate adventure and a fun mystery show and a self-contained journey that had a beginning, middle, and end.
Well, what's funny is you say I was just funny that you said that your score was what? You said 9.8 or whatever.
9.8.
I was looking at just randomly the IMDb score is 7.1. So
Well, good for the IMDb
I know
score.
that it doesn't mean anything,
Anybody
but I
can
just find
edit
it
that.
funny that you said that. It's funny that you gave it
That's
that
why I'm
score.
telling you, Bradley, arbitrary rating systems are bullshit.
Oh, I mean, that's well, yeah, because anytime anybody's like, oh, the Rotten Tomatoes score XYZ, I'm like, okay, but like not everybody takes the time to go on Rotten Tomatoes and A, make a review, or B, is not being paid to review the thing that they're watching,
Well,
which is
Rotten
what all
Tomatoes,
reviewers do.
so Rotten Tomatoes is interesting because Rotten Tomatoes has both a critic aggregate score
Right.
and a lot of review aggregators like Metacritic and stuff will do this. They'll have a review aggregator score and then they'll have an audience aggregator score. And the review aggregator score, yeah, it's all people who are being paid to
Sure.
review a thing
Yeah.
or reviewing it for a publication that they deem is like worthy of being aggregated in, basically.
Right.
And the audience score, any fucking body can log in and make it.
Anyone. Right.
And it's like Yelp, right? So Yelp has a
Anybody can make it up review.
problem.
Right. Right.
Yelp has a pretty big problem as far as being an aggregator of customer reviews. And the reason Yelp has such a problem is because the only people who feel led by the spirit to go and leave a Yelp review are people that are either so delighted as to give something a 5 star
Right.
or so pissed off as to give something a 1 star.
So true. Yeah, you're either getting the best or the worst of the
Mhm.
reviews, right? It's
You get
never in between.
It's never in between. It's always, I think, this is one of my many, many Charles hot takes. I think all 5 star reviews and 1 star reviews should be excised from averages.
I
I
agree.
think if you rate a thing a 5 star or you rate everything a 1 star, it should just be removed. It should totally be removed from the aggregate. I think the aggregation of where a book lands should be, or any piece of media, but I specifically think about this a lot in terms of books, should be the 2, 3, and 4 star reviews or ratings,
Right.
because that tends to be people with a little more nuanced takes on it.
Well, would you be curious to know what the Rotten Tomatoes score for Skeleton
I
Crew?
w- I w- to quote Stef from Dark Side Divas,
Uh-huh.
quoting My Cousin Vinny, a movie that is excellent. I would love to hear this.
Okay. Well, 92% of the average tomato meter, which just means 92% of the critic scores are positive, is 92%. So they like this. Critics like this show.
Critics do like it.
Audience very similar. It's 80%. So
Really,
that's
for a
really
Star
high
Wars show.
for a Star Wars show.
For a Star Wars
I don't
show,
want to
that's
compare
real
the other
fucking
ones,
high.
but yes, that one
Yeah, we don't
is.
need to talk
I
about
don't need
that.
to look at the other ones, but it's 80%, which is, I think, either the highest or relatively high. I hate to compare, but the only other one I know that would even be remotely close would be Andor, which was 87% audience score. So
That
that
tracks.
tracks. I mean, it
Andor's
really
doing
does.
something else. Andor's
But
doing something on a
but
different
also you
level.
can't, that's why I don't like to compare them, because people were saying like, oh, Star Wars shows are back and da 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 da. And I'm like, Andor is telling a different story and a different mood than what Skeleton Crew is doing. Like, I feel like Andor is the HBO equivalent of like a Star Wars show. It's like it's the most
Right.
adult of the shows. It's the most like, you have to be, I don't want to say you have to be smart to watch the show, but you have to be very politically inclined to know like what they're trying to say, like what the themes that they're showing us, like the, you know, all that stuff, like the rise of
Yes, I've
fascism,
been
like
to
you have to
Reddit.
know that.
I've been to Reddit. I can see how people very, very grossly misrepresent what Andor is actually about.
Right. And so I feel like you have to be somewhat intelligent to watch that show, right? Like versus Skeleton Crew, I don't think you need to be intelligent at all to watch it. I think you just need to know how to have fun. And I think that's what Skeleton
I
Crew gives us.
I maybe wouldn't use the word intelligent personally, although I do sort of get your point.
Yeah.
Uh, for me, it's the ability to like how much media literacy do you need to be able to have a conversation about the show?
There you go. Media literacy is a
So
better
my
word to
thing
use.
with Andor is a lot of people who watch Andor and enjoy Andor don't really understand what Andor is doing. Because for them, Andor is a Star Wars show that is fun and it is a fun little like political thriller and you can watch a political thriller and you can enjoy it. There's a reason House of Cards was as popular as it was when it first came out on Netflix. There's a
Right.
reason Scandal was as popular as it was. Like people used to really like political thrillers set in the White House. Not really seeing them anymore. Weird how we've not really seeing those in the last couple of years take off in the way that they used to. But I think to have a conversation about Andor, you do need a degree of media literacy. You need a degree of political savvy, and you also kind of need to be able to express your opinions to other people in a way that is not just agreeing with each other all the time about the show. I think
Right.
with Skeleton Crew, having a high degree of media literacy helps, but I think the show is so geared toward the adventure genre that you can watch it, get the full effect, and not know a single thing about the politics of the New Republic.
Sure.
It helps if you know these things, but they just add spice to it. And my thing is there's a lot of people who say like Andor is the only Star Wars I watch. That's perfectly fine. I love that for you. I got a buddy who's exactly like that. He will watch Andor, he will sign up for Disney Plus, watch Andor as it comes out, and then cancel his Disney Plus immediately. He does not care about any other Star Wars. He's just here for Andor. I love that for him.
Love it.
Go forward. Where it becomes an issue for me is when people say all Star Wars should be like Andor.
Right.
And what they mean is when they say this, because they can also mean all Star Wars should be as well crafted as Andor. That I agree with. All Star Wars should be the same tone, the same realistic quote unquote depiction as
Right.
Andor. No,
No,
no. And I
absolutely
think
not.
Skeleton Crew, for me, has done such a wonderful job of pushing back against this narrative, being a show that treats its kids very seriously. And it doesn't pull punches. The pirates are legitimately scary. The pirates are legitimately dangerous. The stakes are legitimately high. The adults have very adult fears, but at the same time, it understands that a kid watching this for the first time is gonna need to have a full and complete experience. I mean,
Uh,
what else do we have to say? The show is
the show is
excellently
fantastic.
crafted.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to, I mean, unless you have anything else to say, we could go into our always what we end our things with, but I don't know what else to
Yeah,
do. Like,
Skeleton Crew good.
yeah,
Like
it was just good. We liked it. I
Skeleton Crew
mean,
good. And I do think like it was a wonderful show to have the amount of guests that we had on.
yes,
So
we did I loved having guests on
special
for
thank
this.
you to all of our
Yes.
guests, Andy, Catherine, Lorelai, Alex, and Molly. Everybody who came on to talk about the show was excellent. It was nice to kind of break up just the two of us talking before we go back into just the two of us talking,
Right.
like we've pretty much decided we're going to have to do for the next show coming up.
We always do this. It's like I feel like it depends on the mood of the show because I feel like with
It
Skeleton
does.
Crew, it was very laid back. It was very like, okay, enjoy this adventure every single week kind of thing. And that's why the guest worked so well. With this upcoming show, it's not going to be like that. It's going to be very stressful because it's going to be like, here's a 3 episode arc movie that they're releasing every single week, essentially. And good luck like analyzing the shit out of it because it's gonna get you. And I appreciate it. It was fun. It was chewable every single week. It was great. They weren't very long. I if we have to give improvements, our only thing that we ever complain about with Skeleton Crew is that it's not long enough.
There's
As
not
in, there's not
enough. I
enough
want
Skeleton Crew.
more.
Pretty
I
much.
want more show, but also like I acknowledge budgets what they are.
Oh,
They told
absolutely.
enough story that the story overall felt satisfying,
Yes.
but yeah, we could have had more. We could have
It's
had
just
more adventures.
we could have had a meteor, like just a little bit more. Like I just need a little bit more to chew on, which is fine. I think unfortunately in the era of streaming, 8 episode shows are king. That is the new 10 episode HBO format that they used to have. I think it went from, yeah, I think 10 was like the magic number for a while, and then now it's been scaled down to 8
When
for
you had a
some reason.
direct to streaming show, I believe Netflix started with 12, which was a half
12.
season.
Okay.
So 10 to 12, it used to be 10 to 12, which was a half season, because a season of
Right.
TV,
It's
for the benefit of
24.
the
Right.
audience, not for Bradley, who sat through TV classes with me in college.
Right.
TV used to be a full season was 20 to 22 episodes.
Right.
And when Netflix started doing their more cinematic releases like Orange is the New Black and House of Cards,
Right.
they took the budget you would have for 2 episodes and squeezed it down into one.
Right.
So you would have a higher quality episode, which is why those early Netflix shows look as good as they look, is because they said we're only making 12 episodes or 10 episodes.
Right.
And now that's gone down because of corporate bullshit. That's gone down to 8 episodes. And
Makes
now
sense.
it's gone down further to 6 episodes. There's some shows that only have six. And I'm
I
just
mean,
like,
yeah.
what are you thinking? And this was something Skeleton Crew did. This was one of the ways Skeleton Crew's middle section worked really well. One off adventures, basically. And we talked about this particularly in our episode 3 when episode 3 didn't do this.
Yeah.
But 4, 5, and 6 are essentially their own separate adventures on their own separate area. One of them is the same planet, but it's kind of split between the upper part and the lower part.
Right.
And I think if I were going to pad Skeleton Crew out a little bit, if I were going to add some more adventures on the way, yeah, you can just keep island hopping.
It is a tried and true, I think, formula. I mean, it
Mhm.
really is. It is monster of the week. It is quote unquote planet of the week, I guess you could say in this
Yeah, that's
case.
what it is. It's Planet
Like,
of the
yeah,
Week.
planet of the week, I think works for this show. I didn't see a bad part of that because they have to learn a lesson or something that they're going to utilize in the finale or whatever as the planet. That's what the whole purpose of every single one of them was. And so, and it works because we did talk about how the show did the setups and payoffs, and that's essentially what the planet hopping did is be like, hey, you want a turbo laser? Hey, you want the X-Wings to show up at some point? Like they had to show us different things and there was different things the characters learned and they did a great job of that. And I'm with you that I could have used an extra planet hop in there somewhere, like just one more.
Yeah, and I
It,
think
you know,
that's sort of the overall problem with these 8 episode like streaming shows is you leave them being like that was a complete story, kind of want more.
right.
Is the thing. It feels too long to be a movie and too short to really be a TV show. We have some questions that we usually end on for
Yes.
shows when we talk about them because I think we need to move on to them because I don't think we have more to say than we already said.
The only thing that I'll say, you kind of brought this up slightly, is that I think this show could have worked as a movie. I think it would have been a lot more simple, and I think it wouldn't have been as like really good as it was, but I think it still would have worked as an adventure movie. I think as long as they picked and chose the best parts of this show, they edited it down. I still think it needs to be like a 3 hour movie, but I still think that if you did truncate it down, it would work really well. And because I think this is kind of the like we compared and contrasted this to all the Amblin movies and stuff. I think it would have worked, honestly. I would have loved to see this in theaters. I think it would have made a fantastic movie or
I
even a series of movies, honestly.
I do regret not watching the first 2 episodes in the theater the way I did with The Acolyte.
Yeah.
I do regret that.
It's that fun and enjoyable, and I think it would have worked really well.
You want to move on to our questions?
Yes, so like we have done in the past with our recap episodes, which one random point I'll bring up is I don't actually put that it's called recap in the title of every single one. I
It's a
always call it
retrospective.
retrospective,
It is
but
a
I just find it funny
retrospective.
that we say recap, but we always mean retrospective. I just find that
We
funny.
are stupid. That is your answer. We're dumb.
Okay.
We're dumb.
Well,
We record these on a Saturday morning.
uh-huh.
Neither of our brains work. Everyone's tired. Everyone's just vibing. We had an exhausting last 8 weeks covering the show. We are stupid.
Well, then I'll ask you which is actually probably a very controversial question here. How would you like to see the show continue, and in what shape or form would you like to see it continue?
I don't. And I know that
That
is
is
going to
controversial.
be a controversial
Yeah,
answer. I don't think this show should continue. And when I say that, I mean that I'm so satisfied with where this show ended as far as the arcs of the characters that I don't think this narrative, this particular story, can continue in the same form.
right,
It is so conclusively ended the narrative that I think it's done. I think you would have to bend over backwards to find a reason to get this same type of even the same type of narrative because it's so intimately tied into its central mysteries and its central journey. And the show has ended both the central mysteries and the central journey. We have all the answers to our questions that we need to understand the story.
right.
We found Treasure Planet, guys. Treasure Island works so well as a story that what are you going to do? Write a knockoff Return to Treasure Island book after Robert Louis Stevenson dies and then pointedly insist that no, he was always going to continue the story and he would have wanted it, which is a thing someone actually did.
Oh, what's that?
Like
I mean, what's the loose
how
like
are you,
plot of that one?
I don't know.
Because I was gonna
I
say
don't
maybe
know.
that's what they use for the
I was
next
just
one.
reading about Treasure Island and I read that the other day. No, I think this story is done. Now, there are characters from this story whose own individual stories I would like to see continue.
Okay,
In particular, Fern, Wim, and Jod. I do want to see those characters pull a vein. And what I
show up
mean
again.
by that
Yep.
is I want to see those characters show up in another story. I don't think this story needs to continue, but I do want to see those characters continue in another story.
Okay.
Because I think there's a lot that we don't know about Silvo, and he's such a wonderful character on his own that he could definitely switch over and we could learn more about him in another piece of media. I think Wim and Fern are both such strong characters, and with Ad Atten kind of being the way it is, I could see a story in which Ad Atten plays a role as it reintegrates into the galaxy. I could see it playing a role in Heir to the Empire, and like Fern is there, and like I could see that. I could definitely see that happening. I don't think that AT-AT in itself, I think AT-AT in itself, I also extend the same thing of, I think as a character, its journey is kind of over. I think they've reconnected with the galaxy, and that was the character arc for AT-AT over the course of this story. But I would also like to see AT-AT show up in other pieces of media, even though its character arc is sort of done. So this is sort of the benefit of a franchise. I think a season two of trying to actually there's other stuff that we're just shoveling in here so that we can have a sequel. To use a totally random example, if you write a romance novel and you have a side couple get together and it's a man and a woman, but your entire romance series is about men and men couples, and you randomly decide in the opening chapters of the sequel to break up the heterosexual couple in order to write a sequel, that would be bad. That would be annoying. I'm pulling this totally random example out of my ass, and it's not a book that I literally have in the back of my video call with Bradley right now. But that's the sort of thing that would annoy me.
Okay.
They would have to do something like that.
Right.
They would have to say, in order to make this same type of story, we have to undo part of the satisfying ending. And that just wouldn't work for me. But I do want to see these characters continue in some form. What about you, Bradley?
I have a slightly similar and different thing. I agree with you. I don't think there should be a Skeleton Crew season two, if that makes sense. Like that, that's just a statement I'll just make. There should not be something called Skeleton Crew season two. I don't think that exists. I do think the central narrative of Skeleton Crew on its own is its own thing. Now, I say that with an asterisk mark, Thunderbolts asterisk, the Avengers are not available. I think that there should be, I could see a world where there is a Skeleton Crew Rise of Vane or what, you know what I mean? Like it's with a misnomer or like with a namer to it, right? Like, so a separate entity. It's not the same show. It's not a season two. It is a separate thing with the same exact characters. So it would just be the four kids and SM-33. That's it. No one else from Skeleton Crew I would even say Jod would show up. It would just be a separate thing, adventure with just the four kids and SM-33 on the ship going off doing whatever. That I could see that world where that happens. I don't necessarily want that to happen. I'm just saying I could see a world where that happens. But that's one thing. My second thing is I do think either a comic book or a book for Jod's previous life would be beneficial. I think a book or a novel or some kind of physical media that is not a show or a movie would work really well if you did, here's the story of how he gets to the point of being Captain Silvo. I could see that being a very interesting thing that they could do. Just because I feel like Jod's story is interesting enough to where we could have multiple things that happen, and you could even you could keep it in the book family, like how this is kind of a play on Treasure Island. Like you could do what's the one that everybody always adapts? The 12 Crazy Nights, or what is the what's it called?
That's the Adam Sandler Hanukkah movie.
No, not that. The what is it? Or is it Arabian Nights or something like that, where it's like 12 different stories with Aladdin or something? Like there's a book series or something where
Yeah. The original, I think.
it's called something.
I am
I know
not
I'm not a
versed in
book
it. Like
person.
100. It's 1,001 nights or something.
Something
That's
like that,
from.
right? It's been adapted in other media because I think they even made a fucking Sonic the Hedgehog game based on it, like where like
Yeah,
they
no,
follow the same plot.
it's a hugely influential piece of media.
Right. So I
Like,
could see something like that where like his backstory is like all these like multiple adventures that he went on before he got to become the captain. I think that would be something very interesting to do.
you could even do like,
Yeah.
have you ever read Myths and Legends? Star
No.
Wars Myths and Legends. So Star Wars has done a couple of books that are basically like in-universe stories. And we're not necessarily meant to believe that they're true. We're just meant to understand that these are stories either that they're set in the Star Wars universe.
Right.
So it's like there is like they did comics too that's specifically about Darth Vader because of fucking course they are. Like Star Wars comics doesn't know how to have a not Darth Vader thing going, but they've done it for Vader to where it's like people telling stories about Vader and you're meant to look at them and be like, okay, what may or may not have actually happened here? I could see them doing something like that for Jod, to where it's in universe a story
Right.
that he or someone else is telling, and you're meant to look at it and go exactly what I did with when he tells his backstory, to where I'm like, okay, there's parts of this that I do believe happen.
Hmm.
I think it's really abundantly clear from the way Jude Law talks. I do believe that like large elements of his backstories, he explains it to Wim, did occur. Some of it, I'm like, I don't know if I buy this.
Right.
I don't know if I think this happened exactly the way you're telling it.
I mean, that's true. It depends on what perception you believe, like of his stories, but
Mhm.
I also, okay, sorry, I have so many things that I want to do with this show. I
Oh
have so
boy.
many things. So, okay, another
Oh
thing I thought,
boy. Oh boy.
another idea is a cartoon.
Okay.
And it would be a time jump, and it would have the same central four characters, aged up. You can even have the actors do the voicing, right? The same exact actors do the voicing for the show. I would have it. I want there to be a more of a bridge between the Force Awakens era to the Mandoverse era. I know there's a big gap there. We got to start filling in that kind of time era, and I think it would be beneficial to do these characters aged up, working for the New Republic or something, fighting off the First Order's kind of rise, right? The rise of the First Order, right? Like, so I think that kind of stuff could be interesting to see. Maybe they run into some First Order people, beginner First Order people, right? Like, it's not as full on as it is in Force Awakens, but it is maybe a smaller sect or group of people that are kind of starting to cause some trouble. And, maybe they're mixed in with pirates somehow, and just to keep the themes kind of central, but something to connect the two. I feel like we're missing the connect. That would just be one kind of like, I think these characters could help bridge the gap slightly, because they'll be full on adults by the time Force Awakens happens. So I imagine that would be a decent like bridge, right? Because they're pretty young now, and this is like end of Mandoverse essentially, versus is it 30 years that we
This is
jump?
all taking place. I do believe that they said that basically all of the Mandoverse takes place in the same year.
See, I don't buy that. I don't like it.
I also don't like it, but I
If it's
do
like two
believe
or
they have
three
said
years, then sure. But I don't,
they've
yeah,
I think said everything takes place. Well, no, I
it
think
can't.
no. I'm wrong on that. There's a couple of shows that are taking place in the same year, but I think that Book of Boba Fett is a little bit of time after. It's like a year or so after Mando
Season,
season two.
if not somewhat at the end of season two, right?
I
Yeah.
need to research. This is the thing Charles didn't research, and he's not going to bother to
No,
research.
for sure. But
But Bradley's point is this is all taking place in a very short period of time,
right. And we need to
galactically
kind of
speaking.
stretch out a little bit, I think. That could be something beneficial. My last thing, I promise is
Okay.
my last thing.
I know
This
it's not
goes,
actually your last thing, but it's going to be the last thing you're going to say.
yes. So this goes into my conspiracy theory about Tack
Here
Rennet.
we fucking go.
So I would love to see a show centered on Hondo Onaka that connects him to Tack Rennet in some way, to where Tack Rennet is his father. I think that would make such a good prequel to Rebels, to Skeleton Crew, to pretty much all the times that we ever saw Hondo, right? Because we know he's been on hundreds of adventures. We know he's gotten into so much trouble, done all these things. I could see a world where he is setting that up. Or what if, hear me out, he creates the narrative of Tack Rennet, and he's not even a real person, and it's
Ooh.
all fake. It's all a legend that he made up to cover his tracks, that he set up. He placed the bodies, he placed, you know what I mean? Like the ship, everything. It's all fake that he did to cover his tracks so he wouldn't get messed up.
Hey, Bradley, do you know what show you just described?
Is that Black Sails?
It's pretty much Black
I hate you
Sails.
so much.
Black Sails is a pretty much a yeah, it's a Treasure Island 20 years before Treasure Island
I'm
prequel
telling you, like,
about the guy who hid the treasure on Treasure Island.
that wouldn't be a bad, I don't think that would be a bad idea.
No, and that's part of the you bring up an excellent point about this franchise media is once you've introduced something in the future, you can go back and start adding it into the past.
Right.
So, you introduce, for totally random example, you introduce Canto Bight in
Right.
Star Wars The Last Jedi.
Sure.
And then years later, you can go back and tell a story about K-Vix And that starts in Canto Bight in Star Wars Outlaws.
There you go.
And now Canto Bight is in that era, in the Imperial era. You can go back and you can add that in. You can
Right.
deepen the world
It's always been
around.
there. Yeah. I could definitely see them using Port Borgo as like the new kind of like this is where we go to do stuff like randomly
This
for
is
no
where we go
reason.
to do
Yep.
dastardly pirate deeds.
Yep, for no reason. Like they're just like, in I don't want to say Ahsoka season 2, but like maybe in the new movie that they're planning, in whatever, maybe they just randomly stop here because they need someone's advice or what. There's so many things you could do with that. But I could see them like coming back to Port Borgo as the kind of like centralized thing that works in just about any media moving forward.
Before we move on, I had a realization that I have to bring up because I don't remember if we did this in Mando season 3, if we ever brought this up. Did we bring up who Vane is named after?
I
Because I don't
mean,
think we ever brought it up in our Skeleton Crew coverage. Did
are you
we bring it
sure?
up in Mando season 3?
I want to say we did.
That Vane is named after a guy. If you're only joining us for Skeleton Crew and you didn't listen to our Mando season 3 coverage, or if I didn't mention it because
I
it's
was going to
entirely
refresh my
possible,
memory real quick.
Vane, the character in the Star Wars universe, is almost certainly named after actual real life pirate Charles Vane.
Yes, you did bring this up in
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
good. I just want to reiterate again because Charles Vane is a character in Black Sails
Oh, okay.
and Smash. Smash.
Okay.
I
Well,
know, listen, I know he kills people.
on that
I'm
note,
aware of that. I know that he's based on a historical man.
uh-huh,
However, fictional man,
uh-huh.
Charles Vane, character in the context of the Black Sail show, I know he kills people a lot. Still smash. Look at him. Like, just look at this man. Like, we are quickly in danger of turning into a Black Sails podcast. You should all, if you are interested in Black Sails, listen to Genders, Queers, and Buccaneers, the show that Andy, who was our episode 3 guest, co-hosts with their friend Ronnie from the Where They May Radio Network. I've been listening to it a lot as I go through Black Sails, a show that everyone should watch.
I'm gonna leave it to them to cover.
Yeah, we're not a
So
Black Sails podcast. I could very easily turn us into a Black
and
Sails
watch.
podcast.
So do you have any final thoughts on Skeleton Crew as a whole?
I would like all Star Wars projects to put the level of not only love for Star Wars, because I think that everybody who makes Star Wars clearly loves Star Wars, but the level of care into making a show that is as good as Skeleton Crew is, that understands not only the Star Wars genre, but what story it is trying to be within that broader overarching genre.
Yeah.
I loved this show so much. This show was the unexpected sleeper hit for me. This show was the best constructed by its creative team Star Wars show since the Empire, or Star Wars piece of media since the Empire Strikes Back, in terms of how every single thing about it lines up.
Yeah, and I hope that I know they won't do this because they only do this for certain shows, but The Mandalorian is the only show that I know that has won any Emmys because I think it's the only one that they've actually submitted truly for any Emmys. I would love to see this win some awards. I don't know
I
what
would also
those
love to see this
awards
win
would be,
awards.
but I would love to see it just because it is such a fun show, and that'll just lead into my thing. I just feel like this show was so well received. I feel like they deserve some kind of recognition from the Academy or just their peers in general of, the level of care that they put into this show because it was so much fun. It was so great. It looks beautiful and it just is Star Wars at its core. Like it is the most Star Wars of the Star Wars shows. And I feel like that's why people loved it so much. So,
Alrighty, well, on our previous episode, we stated that we were going to do a two-parter that ties into Skeleton Crew somewhat because we have about 3 weeks before Star Wars Celebration. That's not really a lot of time to do something. Also, I'll be honest, both me and Bradley's personal lives are immensely stressful at the moment for two wildly different reasons.
right.
And neither of us has the mental capacity at the moment to dive into a movie for those 3 weeks. So we had originally said we were going to do a two-parter after we're off next week, because we're off next week. However, I have heard your feedback, audience. Listen to me, I have heard your feedback. Thank you for providing it. Every single person who reached out to me or commented on our socials or tagged us on our socials to beg us to do Treasure Planet. We heard you. So, due to, and this may be the first time I can ever say this on the show, due to overwhelming audience demand, we are going to take next week off because of aforementioned personal life stuff.
Yes.
We are going to take next week off. The week after, we will be back. And we are going to do a 1 hour discussion on the movie Treasure Planet.
Okay. I'm
Yes.
excited.
We're not even going to do it as a bonus episode. So many people asked that I was like, we have to do this as a regular episode.
All right. Regular episode, I guess.
We're
We're committed
still we're
now.
still going to do the two-parter afterward. And I'm still not going to tell you what the two-parter is.
Okay.
I'm going to let you all wonder what we're doing.
Got it.
But we are going to do that. We're going to do Treasure Planet first.
Okay. Treasure Planet it is.
Treasure Planet it is. We are going to talk about this movie because we've mentioned it on every fucking episode of Skeleton Crew.
Right. They're like, all right, can you just do a separate episode, please? Thank you.
Yeah, that was basically the feedback was, can you please just do a separate episode on Treasure Planet? And I was like, okay, well, if the audience wants it,
So
I'm
true.
gonna do it.
So
I'm gonna
true.
do it. Just as a reminder, you can always email us at goldsquadrongaze@gmail.com, or you can DM our socials, or and this is actually kind of better, comment on our socials to help boost our social post engagement.
Yes.
Because that helps the algorithm
I love
if you
that.
comment and say what you want to see us cover. All that's to say, we're doing Treasure Planet in 2 weeks, then we're going to do a two-parter, then it's Star Wars Celebration. And then we have to throw our whole schedule out again.
Because who knows what they're going to tell
And who
us.
knows what the fuck they're going to tell us at Star Wars Celebration. And
They're going to be
I'm
like,
so
I
tired.
swear to God, if they say like, oh, the Lando show comes out in December, I'm going to be like, fuck you guys. Like,
I'm going to be so mad. I'm going
I
to be
know it
so
won't,
mad.
but I know they're going to pull some shit where they're going to be like, by the way, the thing that we kind of were joking about a couple years ago that maybe or maybe is not going to happen, guess what? It has an actual release date now, and there you go. And I'm going to be pissed.
I will, in fact, just start drinking at the hotel bar. I
Anyway,
will get on the train back to the hotel and just start drinking at the hotel bar because I will have to process that. You can find a whole bunch of TV shows that Bradley has been involved with, including such shows as Married to Medicine, the later seasons, The Circle on Netflix, Queen's Court. I know Island is out.
fully
Chris
out.
and I were not able to watch. Is the whole show out?
The whole show is fully out. I finished it
Okay.
yesterday.
I cannot talk about it yet because Chris
Okay.
and I were not able to link up and watch it this week, or last week, but we are planning to watch it this week that you are hearing this episode. And
Okay,
so,
good. Yeah.
hopefully, fingers crossed, on our next episode, I
You'll
will
have watched
share
it by
some
then.
thoughts on Temptation Island,
I will say my
which is now
TikTok
on
feed,
Netflix.
I was shocked because how well received this show is. Like, I guess it's because it's airing at such a prominent part in reality kind of like lowness because Love is Blind just ended and it was a bad season. Like people were like, oh, so boring.
I've
And
heard like really negative reviews of Love is Blind. I've managed to hear like
I have
people
so much to say
complaining
about that. But yeah,
about
yeah.
how bad this season apparently was.
Yeah, it's kind of starting to fall off, but I think it's because the original sin of the first season, like it doesn't exist anymore. That you can't like have the social experiment of the first season, and now it's just people trying to get famous on Instagram, you know? So it's really
Is
sucks.
that
But
about all reality TV is just people trying to get more famous on Instagram?
it is, but I think like now that's all the show is. It used to be like a social experiment, and now it's like, okay, you're here for clout. You're not here for any other reason. The problem is they're not casting people who are reality television gold, like to the point where they are have longevity in other shows. These are just like regular people who are just really messy, and it's like, ugh, that doesn't work. Like they need to be longevity. But this season of Temptation Island, I swear to God, I've seen so much TikToks on my feed about this, and I don't like anything. I don't say anything about the show because A, I can't, and then B, I don't talk about it with people or post things on the accounts or anything. So the fact that I'm getting all these things is like really wild to me that this show is being so well received and that people are so dramatically talking about it like it's life or death. Like it's really funny. And I can't wait for you to watch it because it's so messed up and I love
It's one of the things that I'm clinging to right now in order to
it.
keep my sanity afloat
Yes.
is I'm like, okay, I am literally getting through work every day and being like, okay, now it is time to go watch an episode of Black Sails. That's how I've been watching it. I've been watching it because I've been working
Sure.
from home the past couple of weeks. I will get done with work and then go watch Black Sails. The other thing that I'm clinging to with sanity is like getting to sit down with Chris from Dark Side Divas and watch a reality show.
Yeah, just get drunk and just watch your favorite. It's honestly though, like that's how people
Take a
enjoy it.
gummy and watch reality TV. I feel that's the way to do reality TV.
You have to. It's a true escapism. It really is. That's all it's for. It's just to really make yourself feel better about your life.
You get to watch a bunch of really hot people be messy. I
Yeah,
don't know
that's
anything
it.
about what happens in the show except there's hot people and they're messy.
That's the literal description of the show.
Maybe I'll turn into a reality TV guy. Maybe when like all of the
Maybe.
books that I write are maybe when the mainline Beach House Studio series is done and I slow down the pace a little bit so I can take a couple of months to recover.
Right.
Because I'm also writing the final book in that every night, trying to get through it.
Right.
Once I recover from that, maybe I'll turn into a reality TV guy.
There you go.
Hey, who knows? Hey, speaking of Beach
I was
House
gonna say,
Studios
speaking
and the
of.
books that I write, you can also find me on the Star Wars TTRPG podcast for Light and Dice with my friend Chris from Dark Side Divas, also Hope from the previously mentioned J Guys and Jedi, as well as Jess from RuPaul's Pod Race, Colton from Nerdsmith, and our friend Robin. And you can get that wherever you get your podcast. Bradley is also on that. He is the voice of Kosov the Weekway. Also playing a Weekway pirate, I guess.
I guess so.
And also, I write gay thriller mystery novels. Those are called Beach House Studios. Currently, I am waiting out my obligated period to keep them only on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited, but a wider release is coming. I'm not sure if it's going to be the end because you have to sign up in 3-month chunks. And part of the deal for being on Kindle Unlimited is you have to be exclusive to Kindle.
Mm,
You can't be anywhere else. You have to be at least exclusive to Amazon. So you can have like a paperback version, a hardback version, but it has to be through Amazon.
right.
I'm waiting for that term to end. And depending on when book 3 winds up coming out, it will either be this period of 3 months or the next period of 3 months. I'm going to end the Amazon exclusivity. So if you're interested in that, you can find them currently on Amazon. If you're interested in that and you hate Amazon, and I don't blame you, keep an eye on my socials and this show. I am also a volunteer for a Star Wars fan-run Legends convention that is happening in Burbank, California, September 13th through 14th. That is called Legends Expo. Tickets and information are available at legends-expo.com. All right, Bradley, we finished Skeleton Crew. We did it. I feel like it's becoming less celebratory when we finish a show at this point.
Yeah, because they're just gonna have another one right around the corner that we have to cover. So it's
Well,
always like,
So that used to be the case, but also like the shows are 6 or 8 episodes.
Yeah.
When we finished we finish a
No,
Bad
you're
Batch
right.
season,
You're right.
we're like throwing our hands up in the air. I can't raise my hands very high because I exercised 2 days
No,
ago
I
and I'm
think
still
so.
sore. But we're like throwing our hands up in the air and we're like, thank God the 4 months we had to spend covering Bad Batch is over. With the Skeleton Crew, it's like we did it for 2 months and we're done.
right. And that's why I think this is like, okay, I'm fine. Like we did it. Like,
We did it.
People are like, you only did what, 10 episodes total for each, because we have the 0 and then we have this one. It's like, all right, like, or what is it? Yeah, 10. Like,
Yeah.
okay, good for you.
We
like,
have between 8 and 10.
Yeah, 2 months of your
episodes
time.
on
Like,
exactly.
hey, that's a lot of time, honestly. Like,
To be fair, yes. And we've also been making the show now for over 3 years, 4 years. How many years have we been making this show?
I think once you get past 3, it's whatever.
It doesn't fucking matter. It stops mattering.
Although I noticed that there's an account, I think it's on BlueSky or Twitter or something, that like shouts out if you've done more than 5 years on a podcast about Star Wars. So guess they won't ever mention us until we get to 5. So
Well, we started in what, February 2021? I can check,
Right.
actually.
yes, February.
I can actually.
2021.
Yeah, we've been
I think
doing this
on
for over
Valentine's
4
Day,
years.
right?
It was in February at some point.
Yeah. Anyway,
Anyway, I'm all out of segues because I used too many of them in this fucking show. Bradley, go ahead and run our socials. Thank you for listening to Gold Squadron Gaze. Did Charles fuck something up? Email us at goldsquadrongaze@gmail.com and let us know. You can follow us on BlueSky, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Gold Squadron Gaze. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Gold Squadron Gaze, where we post full episodes of this podcast. If you like the podcast, you can also rate us and review us on your favorite podcast app of choice. Please join us next week and every week for another episode of Gold Squadron Gaze. That was a ramble.
That was a long ramble.
That was
But
a
that's okay.
long ramble. That's what I do. I went on several different points over the course of that 3 or 4 minutes that I talked uninterrupted.